Hey everyone. Today I want to talk with you about Ethereum censorship resistance. And just to introduce myself, my name is Slava, I'm CTO at dRPC.org, and we're building robust RPC infrastructure for the multi-chain future. Anyway, when we talk about censorship in the Ethereum context, we typically mean that censorship is some kind of transaction blocking, validators preventing transaction landing in the block or something like that. However, in my opinion, it's actually too narrow. We should define censorship more broadly, and we should talk about it as suppression of information flow. And there are a lot of externalities that actually can influence Ethereum in this way. Let's first look at the few examples that are about censorship. Examples of censorship. First, I want to talk about Bybit hack. And probably a lot of you remember that recently there was a huge hack, a lot of money was stolen. It probably were North Korean hackers. And there were actually a lot of instances of censorship, like their stablecoins were frozen, some bridges and services tried to prevent money laundering. And the question is like, is censorship good now? Because if you try to argue otherwise, some of your opponents will say, do you want North Korean hackers to steal money and launder them to build nuclear weapon? And probably it will be very hard to say, yeah, I against censorship. So the other example I want to share is Tornado Cash. Obviously, many of you also know this. At some point, Tornado Cash was sanctioned by US government, and at that point, a lot of different entities tried to censorship smart contracts and front end. And the important thing here to understand is that not only Tornado Cash was censorship itself, it's also everyone who tried to use it and were like couldn't, or at least they had some issues with that, were censored as well. And the last example actually is not from crypto. I want to share with you a case from Russian internet. In 2018, Roskomnadzor, or RKN, it's a Russian internet regulator, decided to block Telegram. Probably a lot of you use Telegram right now. And the problem is that they didn't have sophisticated enough tools to block Telegram right away. So they started bashing a lot of IP addresses, eventually banning 18 million IP addresses in Russian internet, disrupting Russian internet for several days. A lot of money were lost, and a lot of businesses couldn't function. And that was like the case when censorship actually is not just about censorship, it's just about stability. So in my presentation, I want to distinguish two types of censorship. First is targeted censorship, which is when you try to censor individual or group of individuals. But the key idea is that when it's individual like targeted censorship, you kind of can't expand the censorship, list of censorship entities too quickly. It's very hard. For example, in Bybit hack example, there should be some broad social consensus to do it, and it's hard to replicate. All other types of censorship for me are blanket censorship, and it's when you can expand censorship list very quickly, like in a matter of seconds or even hours. And my hot take would be that targeted censorship is actually debatable, whether we want it or not, and we should have this discussion because, like, if we want, blockchain industry will mature, and there will be more and more questions from states and different regulators to our industry, like how do we strike down the North Korean hackers. However, target censorship blanket censorship is unacceptable. And not only because it's good or bad, it's because it's a stability threat. It can bring down the thing that it basically censors. So, as I said, censorship is a broad thing, and I would like to look at the Ethereum censorship resistance and at all of those layers. However, I only have 20 minutes, so I have to go down very quickly. So first, of course, internet, and there are actually a lot of interesting things about you can do on the internet level to, for example, censor Ethereum. However, as I said, I don't have time, but the gist of it is just it's solvable. Internet is a huge place. You can hide. You can blend in. It's possible to resist internet censorship. Then consensus layer, and it's actually there are some problems. Many of you know. I think there are some presentation about it right now, or like this year at least. But it's basically solvable. The idea is that there is some algorithm or like trick like inclusion lists or some enshrined proposer builder separation that will help us solve censorship on those levels. at least like most of it. However, then, if you're looking from the perspective of users, then after decentralized consensus, there's some kind of software as a service company that is called typically RPC provider. And user uses frontend deployed on AWS and this frontend asks data from this software as a service company to basically interact with Ethereum. And the problem is that when something happens and FBI comes knocking for those centralized companies, they will censor. They will have options: go to jail or censor, and the choice is obvious. So we don't believe them. And if you think that it's some kind of just targeted thing about some investigations, targeted censorship. Actually, it's not. For example, last year on ETHCC, there was a presentation about this paper that basically proposes some kind of very well-defined and very systematic way of censoring on RPC layer. It's kind of a lightweight bank secrecy act that will force all RPC providers that need to comply to score your wallets, to block suspicious activity, to log all the data, all the good stuff. Basically implementing mass censorship mechanisms. And how can RPC providers censor you? Basically two ways. Write. And of course, I don't know if you know, but when you send a transaction, you send it through the wallet. But the wallet typically uses some RPC provider. And the thing is, for example, for MetaMask, you can change it. But for most of them, you actually can't change them. So if, for example, they use censoring RPC provider can deny your transactions. And also there is a read. If you go to Uniswap and you want to make a transaction, first you need to read a lot of data from the blockchain to build the transaction itself, and only then you can send it. And of course, those requests can be denied as well. And the first question, can censoring RPC stop Bybit hacker? And the obvious question is no, it can't. Sufficiently sophisticated actors will run their own nodes, no problem. The long answer, yeah, there are some possibilities. You can make actually it harder, you can maybe catch some guys. And also, if they run their own nodes, it creates additional digital footprint. There are some attacks that allow you to de-anonymize Ethereum node that actually was from which transaction originated. However, as I said, after a few times they will learn and it won't work. However, can it be used for blanket censorship? Of course it can. For example, imagine your favorite DEX was sanctioned by the US government, and now all censoring RPC providers do not work with it. So maybe they will find some non-censoring RPC provider, and the front end will work, but it will work slowly, more errors, more latency. It's kind of bad user experience. And also, don't forget, you need to find a wallet that will support non-censoring RPC to send your transactions. And of course, it's the same story as with VPN. If you have some blocked website, you can use VPN to access it, but obviously it's easier to use just alternative. And this way we can basically censorship out of existence any project we want. And even if there is, for example, a project that does something unique, like Tornado Cash, and you will find a non-censoring wallet, and you will find the front end with non-censoring RPC, and you send the transaction, after that, for example, in a few days, you will go to your favorite DEX to buy more meme coins, I don't know, and nothing works. Nothing works because now your wallet is tainted. And now censoring RPC provider actually scores your wallet, and they said, no, it's probably a hacker, I will deny the service, and you kind of shadow banned. This kind of dystopian future social rating RPC provider layer. So imagine, this great instrument in the hands of this guy or any crazy regulator out there. It's actually, I would say it can bring down Web3 completely. So the obvious question, decentralized RPC, yes. And there are some projects that are at least claim to do it, like Pocket Network or Lava Network. And my hot take would be that decentralized RPCs are dead. And dRPC, maybe you've guessed that D stands for decentralized. We've been trying to do this for 3 years in a way that is not kind of ideological project, but commercial. And at this point, I think that it's not possible. There are 2 things why it's not possible. First, we need to understand who are users of RPC. It's commercial companies who run their own projects, having their own goals, own clients, and they actually don't care about decentralization. And for a good reason, they are not bad just because they have a lot on their plate, a lot of problems they need to solve. They can't be bothered by supply chain decentralization. It's hard enough for them. So they will evaluate your solution based on very simple metrics like reliability, cost, and latency. And if centralized alternatives will have it better, they will go to them. The second problem is, imagine you work with this decentralized RPC provider, and at some point there are some errors. So who are you gonna call? What you do? It's decentralized. You will go to some Discord room to ask community for like, can you help me please? At the same moment when your clients, write you angry messages, asking you to, revive your project, like. Nobody wants to deal with it, and most of them want just 24/7 support, and they will go to this support line and fix the problem. So, in my opinion, it's kind of those 2 reasons why decentralized RPCs, I don't know, in my opinion, are impossible. So the answer may be run your own nodes, but yeah, you probably know the answer. At this point, we see no signs of it being kind of a widespread practice, and I don't see any future where it happens, especially with the L2 explosion as of now. It's just non-viable. So in my opinion, there is actually no solution in the sense like inclusion lists solve the builder censorship problem. However, like the only thing we can do, we need as much RPC provider as possible, and we need a good geodiverse set of different RPC providers in different jurisdictions. So in case this regulation applies, there will be always some RPC provider that is in another jurisdiction. However, we need to understand, like, if we want to understand it, is it possible that RPC is commodity? It's like electricity, everything sells the same stuff. So JSON RPC is standardized. There is no different, the product is the same for Alchemy, for dRPC, and for any other provider. And the second thing that it's hard to enter this market. It means that you need to invest a lot of resources. You need to build a lot of stuff, hire a lot of people, sales, marketing, developers, DevOps, infrastructure. You need to buy a lot of servers, and you need to buy them cheap because nodes are not cheap. So for typical commodity markets, it basically looks like that. There are 3 stages. First is called race to zero. As I said, you all sell the same thing. So the only thing to distinguish yourself from competitors is to just drop price. And everyone does it for a while, until there are some big players emerge. And for them, economy of scale starts working. So basically it means that the more requests they have, each individual request will be cheaper, and they will have more money, and they start buying smaller players. And this consolidation phase continues for a while, and after that, oligopoly emerges. Some oligarchs emerge, they control the market, control the prices, control the quality, they control everything. And good examples would be, for example, US Airlines. I think it's now more expensive to fly in America than it was in the 70s. Because there are only 4 US domestic airlines right now. The same similar example would be CDN, cloud provider markets, and there are a lot more examples. So, and if we look at the RPC market right now, there is like 70% of market is controlled by 4 entities, and it's not working. So what can we do about it? So we can basically do 2 things. We can have more ideas how to, decrease the barriers to enter the market, and we can do it easier to swap the provider. So first is, of course, the idea how to enter the market easily, more easier. It's our dRPC idea. It's basically modularized. You have 2 types of companies. You have node providers and you have front ends. And front ends doing all the stuff that decentralized RPC provider can't do. Support, sales, marketing, all that stuff. Node providers are actually kind of those native Web3 blockchain companies that are responsible for infrastructure. And it's already happening. As I said, dRPC is basically doing it right now, and we're doing it from the start. And I could tell you that right now we are top 5 RPC provider. We do 50% of volume of Alchemy or QuickNote, and we have less than 20 people technical team and less than 30 people sales team with sales and everyone else. And yeah, so we are not alone. Growth, another project that is built on top of Pocket Network Node Runner set. And of course, maybe you've heard about Infura Dean. I think they quietly moved to the same direction as previous two. And there are a lot of course, listed some of the projects that are, those actually very interesting breed of blockchain companies, which are focused on infrastructure. They work with us. They work with Lido, for example, with the Graph protocol. And you should piggyback on them. It will cut the costs. And the second, easy swap. First, we should have all the libraries supporting fallback logic. So you would be able not to use one provider, but several. For example, kudos to VM.js team that already, I think, one of the first who did it. But if your library doesn't support it, there are some smart RPC proxies. For example, we maintained dShackle for several years. There's eRPC on the market you can use. So if your library doesn't support it, just use them. And there is a lot of nice things that you can actually save money. You can improve latency and sometimes do some other stuff that will help you. And the last thing to be able to easily switch is pay-as-you-go. When we started, pay-as-you-go for RPC providers was non-existent. I think we were one of the first who did it. And right now, Alchemy recently changed their pricing to reflect the same as we do. They are now having pay-as-you-go tariff, which is great because it doesn't lock you for. First, it doesn't lock you for a long time on a contract, and the second, even if you have several RPC providers, it allows you not to burn money for having a fallback, which is also very important. And we also building a product, smart RPC proxy right now. If you want to, look more at it, you can go to this URL. But if we do both of those two things, we can have this future. There's basically polyarchy. A race to zero happens still, but because there is easy swap, those companies won't be able to, the big players, won't be able to burn the market. Basically, for example, going below profitability level until the oligarchy emerge. After which they potentially can increase the prices, and also if it's sufficiently easy to enter the market, they also do not have incentive to burn the market with the prices. That's our goal, I think, and also you can help. If you're building any kind of decentralized application or Web3 application that uses RPC, please just use several RPC providers. It will help you because it will make your application more stable and less prone to RPC problems, but you will also support competition. And I think we should all do that because otherwise we have a quite dystopian future with RPC regulations. So my small takeaways is that first, blanket censorship is unacceptable, and we should, not take it lightly. And RPC layer right now is highly vulnerable and very centralized. So please keep the good fight, help us keep the decentralization, and be safe. If you want to check out dRPC, go dRPC.org. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can scan this QR code. And that's it for me.